77. Defense against the dark arts with a new teacher. Snape comes in, tells them, he's looked at what they've gone over and such. Says, you've had 5 teachers in this subject so far, I believe. Yeah, and if they'd been there 8 years, they would have 8 teachers by now. And if they'd been there 20 years, because, naturally these teachers will all have had their own methods and priorities. Really, Quirrell. Loser. Lockhart, loser. Lupin, not bad. Crazy guy, pretty good. Umbridge, double loser. I mean, she's even worse than Quirrell and Lockhart. Given this confusion, I am surprised so many of you scraped an owl in this subject. I shall be even more surprised if all of you manage to keep up with the new work. Okay, so he walks around the room. And he speaks in a low voice. Why? Notice, the class craned their necks to keep him in view. Is it merely so that they can see him? They're also doing this because they can't hear him. He drops his voice. Some people say this is a teaching technique. It's one I've never been accused of. To make the students strain to hear, to really pay attention. The dark arts are many, varied, ever-changing, and eternal. Fighting them is like fighting a many-headed monster, which each time a neck is severed, sprouts a head even fiercer and cleverer than before. You are fighting that which is unfixed, mutating, indestructible. Indestructible. Cannot be destroyed. So you're fighting what? Possibly a losing battle. Your defenses must therefore be as flexible and inventive as the arts you seek to undo. That is Harry's strength. Inventive, flexible. It's not just memorize this list and, like writing programming. If this, then this. If this, no, you got to be able to adjust or die. Yeah, exactly. So he shows pictures of, various things. And there's an Inferius, Parvati. So has one been seen then? Is it definite? Is he using them? The Dark Lord has used Inferi in the past, which means you would be well advised to assume he might use them again now. In other words, those who don't learn from the lessons of the past are condemned to repeat them. If he's done this before, you better be prepared for it. Okay? So we're going to skip the rest of that. Harry gets a note from Dumbledore talking about their first lesson, and we get chapter 10, the House of Gaunt. Okay? He goes up to Dumbledore's office, and Dumbledore tells him, around 196 or so, I've decided it's time that you know what prompted Lord Voldemort to try and kill you 15 years ago. Harry, you told me at the end of the last term you were going to tell me everything. In other words, what gives? What have you kept from me? Dumbledore. And so I did. Notice, I think Dumbledore catches the tenor in Harry's voice. He hears the doubt. And so I did. I told you everything I know. From here on out, Harry, we shall be leaving the firm foundation of fact and journeying together through the murky marshes of memory. Notice the alliteration, firm foundation fact, murky marshes memory, into thickets of wildest guesswork. From here on in, Harry, I may be as woefully wrong as Humphrey Belcher, etc., etc. But you think you're right. Now think about that question for a moment. How many of us think in ideas that we hold that we're wrong? You generally don't. You hold those ideas because you think they're the right ideas. Well, naturally I do. It's kind of like smack. Duh. Yeah. And I make mistakes like the next man. But being rather cleverer than most men, my mistakes tend to be correspondingly huger. If I make a mistake, when I make a mistake, it's a doozy, Harry. So, as we saw where? Book 5. Keeping Harry in the dark, keeping Sirius locked up, big mistakes. Okay? So, Dumbledore says to Harry when they go towards the pensive, "You look worried." Harry's like, "You know what? This time you enter the pensive with me. And even more unusually, with permission." What does the more unusually mean?
So far, he hasn't with permission.
Okay, what else?
He's never gotten into it without his permission, or with his permission.
Because the first time, it was just sitting there
Where?
in Dumbledore's office.
Okay, where's the next time?
In Snape's. And he
I
went into both.
think he's alluding to that. He knows about that. Okay, so where are we going? Trip down Bob Ogden's memory lane. Okay, so he talks about Bob Ogden, and they go with Bob Ogden. Country lane. Okay. Dirt track off the country lane. Notice, not a paved road. And we hear someone say, notice in italics, "You're not welcome." Why is it in italics? He's speaking Parseltongue. Okay. "Good morning, I'm from the ministry." "You're not welcome. I don't understand you," because he's hearing. Okay. Dumbledore, you understand him, right, Harry? Yeah. Oh, he's speaking Parseltongue. Dumbledore, very good. Notice, even in the pensive, teaching, making Harry what? Pay attention to details. Details are going to be very important here for Harry to survive. Okay? So, what's the importance of going down memory lane with Bob Ogden? What does Harry learn? Voldemort's background. Okay? We meet Marvolo Gaunt. We meet Morphin Gaunt. We meet Maripay. And Harry even gets a glimpse of whom?
Senior.
All right. So we're going to skip a bunch to when they come out. Page 211. Dumbledore says, "I think that'll do, Harry." What happened to the girl in the cottage? Why does Harry ask that? She wasn't treated well. She was treated poorly. Why else does Harry ask that? Think of Harry's character.
He wants to save her.
There's that, if I could go back in time kind of a thing. Okay? Maripay, or whatever her name was. Oh, she survived. Okay? Dumbledore mentions Marvolo. Harry, Marvolo, that's right. Glad to see you're keeping up. Notice, he doesn't make Harry go, "Marvolo, fill out the name, Harry." That old man was Voldemort's grandfather. Yes, Marvolo, his son Morphin, his daughter Maripay were the last of the Gaunts. It's not an accident she chooses the name Gaunt, okay? Because Marvolo is, by this point, gaunt. He's thin. He's wasted. He's also wasted what? Financially. The family name, the family heritage. What does he have?
Yeah.
Ring and a locket. That's it. Okay? It's also, I think, because Gaunt in the English Middle Ages is an extremely important name. John of Gaunt, Duke of Lancaster, who was brother of a king, son of a king, one of 7 sons, okay, who was known as the Kingmaker because he helped push people into positions and things like that. So I think she's touching on that for English school kids reading this one. Oh, Gaunt, I know that, Gaunt, I know that name, etc. Harry, so Maripay was, sir, does that mean she was Voldemort's mother? Well, he already said you've met Voldemort's grandfather. Hello? It does. We also had a glimpse of Voldemort's father. I wonder whether you know. The Muggle on the horse? Very good indeed. Tom Riddle Sr. handsome muggle who used to go riding past the Gaunt cottage, and for whom Merope Gaunt cherished a secret, and they ended up married? Harry said in disbelief, unable to imagine two people less likely to fall in love. You're forgetting she was a witch. Now, what has Harry been learning in potions? Okay. What was one of the potions they discussed, at least, in the first
love
potion?
The
Love potion. There's a reason for that, because it gets reintroduced here. Okay? Can you not think of any measure Merope could have taken to make Tom Riddle? It's like Dumbledore knows what Harry is studying, and he's reinforcing those lessons. The Imperious Curse? Strike one. A love potion. I think it's that one. Okay. Within a few months of the scene we've just witnessed, the village of Little Angleton enjoyed a tremendous scandal. The gossip it caused when the squire's son ran off with the tramp's daughter. Harry, Merope, she died, didn't she? Wasn't Voldemort brought up in an orphanage? Yes, indeed. Notice, guesswork here. He doesn't have proof, but he's kind of following the, well, as Sirius would say in book 4, he's reading the signs. He's seeing where the facts kind of point to. Yeah, he's filling in the blanks. We must do a certain amount of guessing here, although do not think it is difficult to deduce what happened. So, they run away, marriage. You see, within a few months of their runaway marriage, Tom Riddle reappeared without his wife. Rumor flew that he had been hoodwinked, taken in. What he meant, I'm sure, is that he'd been under an enchantment that had now lifted, though I dare say he had not dare use those precise words for fear of being thought insane. Right? What they heard, when they heard what he was saying, however, the villagers guessed that Merope had lied to Tom Riddle, pretending she was going to have his baby, and that he'd married her for this reason. And when he comes back, it's because the villagers think she was never pregnant to begin with. And so he leaves her. But she did have his baby. Yes. But not until a year after they were married. They get married. Notice, she's not pregnant when they get married. She gets pregnant 3 months later, maybe a little bit longer, okay? And then a couple months after that, he leaves. So she's pregnant when he leaves her. What went wrong? Why did the love potion stop working? Well, Dumbledore's going to say that. Here's an aspect of this I always find very interesting. Is there a parallel?
J.K. Rowling's life?
Yeah. I mean, this is J.K. Rowling's first marriage. Whirlwind romance. Marries the guy, moves to Portugal. He's a Portuguese journalist. Moves to Portugal, and within like 3 months of the marriage. I mean, whirlwind romance, like a 3 month. They meet, fall madly in love, get married within 2 or 3 months. She gets pregnant. He divorces her before she even has her first child. And she goes back to Scotland. Okay? Very, very similar. I don't know that she intends this, but man, you could read this kind of biographically. And if you do, what does that suggest? Her ex is like Tom Riddle. Ouch. I mean, that's pretty low. Okay? But then what does that make her? Merope? Okay. Yeah, Jessica. Her daughter's name's Jessica. Okay. That's why it doesn't, every analogy breaks down. Okay. So, Dumbledore says, in response to Harry's, why has the love potion stopped working? I believe Merope, who is deeply in love with her husband, could not bear to continue enslaving him by magical means. I believe she made the choice to stop giving him the potion. And if you wanted to do the psychological biographical thing, that's J.K. Rowling stopping loving her husband when he ditches her. Okay? Perhaps, besotted as she was, she had convinced herself that he would by now have fallen in love with her in return. In other words, she makes a decision based on something. What's her decision based on? Nope. What does she choose to believe about him?
That he would love her.
That he would love her. That her decision, that decision she makes is based on love because she loves him. Remember what the false Moody said to Harry? Decent people are what?
So,
They're gullible. Why? Because they assume other people are like them, decent. Well, Maripe is a decent person in an indecent family. She is the proof to Hagrid's statement about Dumbledore's belief that it doesn't matter where you come from. That good people can come out of horrible families. Just as horrible people, Barty Crouch Jr., could come out of bad families. Or Dudley's transformation. Okay? Or even Malfoy's transformation. That you don't see until you get to the epilogue. Really. Okay? And even then, it's not transformation in the sense that he and Harry are best friends or anything. Okay? Don't get me wrong there. So, she made the choice to stop giving him the potion. He left her, never saw her again, never troubled to discover what became of his son. Once it wore off, gone. That's enough for tonight, Harry. He goes, okay. And this is all important, right? I mean, I need to know this? Uh-huh. It's got something to do with the prophecy. What does Harry mean by that? It'll help me kill him. Right? Well, yeah, or survive. But that's the same thing. Harry, okay. And I can tell Ron and Hermione, right? Yep, you can tell it, Ron and Hermione. Just them, nobody else. All right. The ring. He turns, and sitting on one of the little spindle-legged tables that supported so many frail-looking silver instruments was an ugly gold ring with a large cracked black stone. That ring, yes. You were wearing it when we visited Professor Slughorn that night. Uh-huh. Isn't that the same ring Marvolo Gaunt showed Ogden? Now that's an attention to detail that Harry doesn't kind of normally show. Very same. Have you always had it? I got it recently. A few days before I came to fetch you. About the same time you injured your hand. Yeah, about that. How? Good night, Harry. Notice Dumbledore strings him along. He lets him do what? Put the pieces together to so far. And then he stops him. Okay? Here. Later on, he'll let it go a little bit more. And then he stops. Why? He doesn't want him to jump to conclusions. He doesn't want him to get so much and then jump to a wrong conclusion. Okay? So, chapter 11. Hermione's helping hand. They're at dinner, or breakfast, I can't remember which. And this is 2:21 or so. Ron makes a comment about, we've got Dumbledore. Hogwarts is being protected, safer than people's homes, because students are starting to leave. We've got oars. Hermione, we don't have them all the time. She looks up at the high table. Seat's been empty all this week. Okay. Where does Dumbledore go when he's not at Hogwarts? What is Hermione's helping hand? What does the title refer to? Oh, that would have been a good, quiz question. Mikey, you know what it is? What is Hermione's helping hand?
Oh, she confirms her problem.
So why? For what purpose?
So that Ron gets the keeper position.
Okay. And then later on, she accuses Harry of what?
Putting the luck potion.
Giving him the good luck potion, the Felix Felicis, when he doesn't. Notice, she cheats, and then he accuses Harry of cheating which he hadn't done. Okay. 235. They're talking about. Well, Harry's talking about whatever this dark thing that he thinks Malfoy has tried to smuggle into school. The thing that he thinks Malfoy was doing at Bergen and Burt's. Okay? And Hermione says, well, how can he have done? How could he have smuggled something in? We were all searched when we arrived, weren't we? Harry, were you? I wasn't. Oh, no, you weren't. I forgot you were late. Well, Filch ran over all of us with secrecy sensors when we got into the entrance hall. Any dark object would have been found. No, it's not a dark object. It's just an invisibility cloak. Can be used for good, can be used for ill. Why wasn't Harry searched? I mean, yeah, that's
Because he's
within the course of the novel because he was like, yeah, I know.
I know what
Because he has something in him.
Snape.
Let's put it that way. That would have gone beep, 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 set off the alarm.
For Snape.
It's
Okay.
like somebody who has a knee replacement walking through a metal detector at an airport.
I flew to Oregon last week, and I was afraid that was going to happen to me because I've got a metal pin because I had partial shoulder replacement last summer. It goes from about here and then around, and I thought for sure I'm going to go through it, and it's going to, they're going to send every, not a thing. So apparently not all the time. So next chapter, Silver and Opals. Harry's in bed. He's playing with the potions book, even though it's not teaching him potions. I mean, it's got spells written in it. Libera Corpus, Levicorpus. Hits Ron. Ron elevates. And so he's flipping back, trying to find what the thing is. And it's Libera Corpus. Levicorpus, raise a body. Libera Corpus, free a body. So Ron's up here, and what happens? Wham! What's Hermione think about the book he's using? Why not?
Because the same as
Doing so well.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah.
He's jealous, yeah.
Okay. Why else?
Because the book that Tom Riddle's diary was.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Tom Riddle's diary thing going on, kind of
It deviates from the actual book. It's not like.
Okay, keep going with that.
They don't know
She
who.
follows the book.
Hold on.
They don't know who the Half-Blood Prince is, and they don't know what all of these things are going to do.
Okay.
So they don't know if it's going
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, they're just spells, and there's nothing written about what it does. And so Harry's, after all, he reads one that he is going to try on, not try, hey, this will be fun. It's the first thing in his mind with Malfoy, Sectum Sempra. He doesn't know what it does.
Always try.
And it, nearly kills him. Okay? It's not, let's use what another teacher said. Ministry approved textbook. Because it has additional material to it. That's, I think, really what bothers Hermione. It's not, as Mikey said, it's not part of the published text. It's stuff that is written into it. And reading, the very act of reading within the course of the novels can be what? Extremely dangerous. So you should approach reading how? Very cautiously, very carefully. Because reading isn't merely words, it's interpreting things. Harry sees that glow over in Dumbledore's office. He reads the pensive. Okay? He reads the pensive in Snape's office. He reads Snape's experiences when he breaks into Snape's mind there for a moment. All those are aspects of reading. It's not merely words, it's interpreted. So that when we see book 7, Neville say, I don't think you're a waste of space, Harry reads that. Okay? Yeah, Dudley. Harry reads that and makes it make sense to him. So the only problem is when he has all these spells, he doesn't know how to make sense of them. He doesn't know what they mean. He apparently doesn't know Latin. Liber, free, corpus, body. Though liber can also be book. Okay?
They should probably teach Latin.
Yes. Let's see here. So, yeah, we'll skip that. They go on to, how much of this do I want to talk about? They go on to Hogsmeade, and we see what happens with Katie with the silver and opals. Notice, just before then, page 246 or so, Mundungus, we know, has been stealing from Harry and such. And they go inside and they order their butterbeers and such. And Hermione asks Ron, Ron, what are you staring at? Nothing, he says, hastily looking away from the bar. But Harry knew he was trying to catch the eye of the curvy, attractive barmaid, Madame Rosmerta, for whom he had long nursed a soft spot. Now keep in mind, Rosmerta's not just a few years older than Ron. She was there when Harry's parents came in, because she remembers the four coming in. And Hermione says, I expect nothing's in the back getting more fire whiskey. Notice, said Hermione waspishly. What's the waspishly mean? Yeah. Louder?
She caught the feels.
Okay. Zingingly. Why? She's jealous. Have they had anything to indicate other than Ron getting all bent out of shape over Vicky, in the Yule Ball and all that? No, nothing's quote unquote gone on. Even though they were together all summer at, number 12.
Now, Jenny.
Well, that's coming up in this page. Okay? So, Harry says, shall we call it a day, go back to school then? The other two nodded. It had not been a fun trip. The weather was getting worse the longer they stayed. Once again, they drew their cloaks tightly around them, rearranged their scarves, pulled on their gloves, followed Katie Bell and a friend out of the pub and back up the high street. Harry's thoughts strayed to Ginny. Notice he's not really thinking of anything in what happened. It's like his mind just, it's not like Ginny's in front of him. It's just, she's just kind of there in the periphery of his mind. It's an implication.
It was a hint when he first went to the Slughorn classroom. He said that he smelled a smell that he remembers smelling at the Burrow, and then he's sitting at the table and he sees that Ginny walked by.
Yeah.
And he smells it.
Yeah. Okay, so it's like Ginny's kind of always in the periphery of Harry's mind. Think of Harry's mind as that golden web that he and Voldemort create. Ginny's like, Cedric walking around the inside. She's just kind of always there. She's not always in the forefront of his mind. It's just, when he's not really thinking about anything in specific, there's this, blur that every now and then he kind of latches onto. They had not met up with her, undoubtedly, thought Harry, because she and Dean Thomas, were cozily closeted in Madame Puddifoot's tea shop, that haunt of happy couples. Yeah, he was so happy when he was there with Cho, right? Scowling, he bowed his head against the swirling sleet and trudged on. Scowling. He's thinking where Ginny is now. He's not Dean. So they hear Katie Bell scream and stuff. I'm going to skip a bunch. Harry tells McGonagall he thinks Malfoy had something to do with it. She tells him Malfoy wasn't in Hogsmeade. He says, how do you know? He was in detention with me. Chapter 13. So, he tells her, notice he doesn't wait. This isn't like, Harry, is there anything you want to tell me? Dumbledore asks him in the second book. No, nothing. He comes right out. But he's slowly, okay? So, Harry goes to Dumbledore. Dumbledore tells Harry that Katie will be better. Snape was able to do enough to prevent a rapid spread of the curse. Harry, why him? Why not Madame Pomfrey? Madame Pomfrey's the nurse, right? Nurse/doctor. She runs the infirmary, the hospital wing. Why her? Why not her?
Snape knows more about the dark arts.
Phineas Nigellus says, impertinent. I would not have permitted. Dumbledore, shut up, Phineas. Professor Snape knows much more about the dark arts than Madame Pomfrey, Harry. It's kind of like, and that's why he's teaching it. Anyway, the St. Mungo staff are sending me hourly reports. I'm hopeful Katie will make a full recovery in time. Okay, Dumbledore has given us a little clue here. He was able to do enough to prevent a rapid spread of the curse. Same thing that happened with somebody else. Okay, so, new memory, new trip down memory lane. But only after Harry tells Dumbledore he thinks Draco's behind it all. And McGonagall told you, Harry said, and you're going to do what? Dumbledore, I shall take all appropriate measures to investigate anyone who might have had a hand in Katie's accident. In other words, leave it alone, Harry. Leave it alone. Okay, so, you will remember, he says, around 260, you will remember that we left the tale of Lord Voldemort's beginnings at the point where the handsome muggle Tom Riddle had abandoned his witch wife and returned to his family. Maripe was left alone in London, expecting the baby who would one day become Lord Voldemort. He didn't know that she was in London. Harry, how do you know she was in London? That wasn't in the previous memory, because of the evidence of one Caractacus Burke, who helped found the very shop whence came the necklace we've just been discussing. In other words, Dumbledore's telling us, I know where the necklace came from. Okay. So, swishes the pensive, they go in, and we hear Caractacus Burke talk about a young witch who came in just before Christmas. Brought it many years ago. She said she needed the gold badly, covered in rags, pretty far along, going to have a baby. She said the locket had been Slytherin's. Well, we hear that sort of story all the time. Oh, that's right, this one doesn't have it. The 7th book has the locket on the cover. Okay? The British version. And we hear that all the time. He said, but when I looked at it, had his mark all right, a few simple spells, enough to tell me the truth. I gave her 10 galleons. Harry's like, cheap bastard. He only gave her 10? Not famed for his Harry. But she could do magic. She could have got food and everything for herself by magic. Couldn't she? Dumbledore, perhaps she could. 7th book. Harry, Ron, Hermione, out in the woods. They're hungry. They're cold. It's winter. Ron says to Hermione, make some food. She says, I can't make food. Ron, if you would read a damn book, you would know. There's and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, there's a specific law that says you can't make food out of nothing. Well, my mother can. No, she can't. She has to have something to turn into food. Okay? Dumbledore, notice here, doesn't correct Harry. Now, that might be because Rowling hasn't yet thought up whatever that fourth law of transfiguration is, or transformation. Okay? But notice what Harry thinks. She's magical. She can do what? Anything. Well, who else thinks like that? Voldemort. Voldemort thought the same thing. My mother couldn't have died. Why? Because she's magical. So it had to be the father. But I think, Dumbledore says, that when her husband abandoned her, Merope stopped using magic. Not only did she stop giving him the love potion so that he leaves, she stops what? She stops being something that apparently, in her mind, repulsed him. A witch. She stops practicing magic. Dumbledore says, I do not think she wanted to be a witch any longer. And I think the implication is because she thought, well, maybe if she wasn't a witch, maybe he would have loved her. I think it probably has something to do with also being the daughter of the local tramp. Okay? Not trampy woman, tramp homeless guy. They're not homeless. They live in a hovel, right? Of course, it's also possible that her unrequited love and the attendant despair sapped her of her powers. That can happen. Notice, despair can do what? Take away your magical ability.
Like Tonks when she brings him up to the gate.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Merope refused to raise her wand even to save her own life. Harry, she wouldn't even stay alive for her son? I mean, it's one thing to be willing to die yourself because you have nobody else. Like, who's going to notice? She wouldn't even stay alive for her son? Dumbledore. Eyebrows go up. Could you possibly be feeling sorry for Lord Voldemort? No, says Harry quickly. Why is it important that he says it quickly? Yeah. He's trying to... No, of course I don't. I feel sorry for... How could anybody feel sorry for Voldemort? But she had a choice. Not like my mother. Hello? Take me. Don't take Harry, she says. That's a choice. In fact, she's even giving Voldemort a choice. Do you want the present behind door number 1 or the present behind door number 2? Okay? Your mother had a choice. Yes, Merope Riddle chose death, in spite of a son who needed her. But don't judge her too harshly, Harry. Why? She was greatly weakened by long suffering. What long suffering?
Her family.
Her father and brother. And her husband. She was greatly weakened also by the carrying a child to term without a husband and then delivering that child without a husband.
And it's kind of funny that it happens to be a boy, and it's all the men in her life that
Yeah. And she never had your mother's courage. Notice, did Harry bring up his mother? No, Dumbledore does. Why? He's drawing a connection. He's putting a connection in Harry's mind. Harry, you and Voldemort, you know what he told you back there in book 2? Yeah, there are some similarities, Harry. Maybe you should cut her some slack. And maybe you should feel sorry for Lord Voldemort. What does it mean to feel sorry for somebody? Oh, that's too bad. Your life sucks. See you later. Is that it?
To understand where they're coming from.
To understand where they're coming from? What else?
not angry.
To not be angry? What else? Louder? Forgiveness? Possibly. Empathy. Together, pathy, feeling. To feel with. Okay? That is to share some of that pain. Huh. Well, guess what? That is exactly what Harry is going to do at the very end of Book 7. He is going to feel that pain, and he's going to offer Voldemort an option that Voldemort is completely blindsided by. He's like, what? You're kidding me, right? We'll talk about it later. So, Harry's like, okay, now where? Now we're going to go into my memory, Harry. And Harry's probably thinking at this point, ooh, this will be good. So they go into the pensive, and Dumbledore says, there I am, tall figure crossing the road in front of a horse-drawn milk cart. Long hair, beard, auburn-colored, plum velvet suit, flamboyantly cut, notice. Okay. And they go off to what kind of establishment? The orphanage. Describe it. Is this a light, airy place?
Rather grim.
Rather grim. Who is the matroness who runs it?
Mrs. Cole.
Very Dickensian on J.K. Rowling's part. In Charles Dickens, every name he has is chosen for some kind of either symbolic or sound symbolism. You have a guy named Gradgrind, for example. Churl is another one. David Copperfield, Charles Dickens. Notice the initials. Okay? You get that kind of thing going on. Mrs. Cole. Describe Cole. Dark, black, dusty, cold, hard. Okay? Bad for your health. Pollutant. Describe Mrs. Cole. Is she loving? Or let me rephrase that. Is she outwardly loving? No, she's not. Does she sing the kids, lullabies to sleep at night? No, she doesn't. In fact, what do we see of her when Dumbledore first goes in? She's doing what? And she does it repeatedly. Before then, I just did it. She's drinking gin. She smells of gin. She's an alcoholic. Okay? But what do the children get once a year? I don't mean like water or food. A vacation of sorts. She takes them where? Out of the city. They go out to the country. Why? Because London at this time is horrible. It's dark, it's gritty, it's grimy. She gets them away and they go out where? They go out to the country, to the literal country, to see trees and grass and woods and the ocean, etc. Okay? So I mean, she's not a little Hitler, but she's not Mother Teresa also. Okay? So, Dumbledore goes in, tells her who he is and such. She offers him a glass of gin. Paid $2.63. Soon became clear Mrs. Cole was no novice when it came to gin drinking. Pouring both of them a generous measure, she drained her own glass in one. Now, I think generous measure, probably like that much. 3 or 4 inches of gin. One shot for her. For most people, there'd be 2 or 3 or 4 swallows. She's used to this. Okay? So, he asks her about Tom Riddle's history. She says, weird things happen around Tom. She says, I hope she takes after his papa. Or she, Maripe, said that she hopes he looks like his papa. Because she was no beauty. When she told me he was to be named Tom, then Marvolo, that's what I named him. Dumbledore. So he's a bully? Well, I think he must be. Very hard to catch him, but incidents, nasty things. So she talks about what happened to Amy Benson and Dennis Bishop when they went where? Off to the ocean and, more specifically, to the cave. Which is the same cave, we are, I think, fairly clearly led to believe, that comes up in the next book. Okay? So, yeah, this book, sorry. This book. So, Dumbledore says, now you're aware I'm going to take him away for good, right? Excuse me, that will not, I mean, he'll come home holidays. She says, well, that's fine. In other words, if I get rid of him 11 months of the year or 10 months of the year and you have him those and I only have him 2, yeah, more power to you, buddy. So, Dumbledore goes off and meets him. Tells him who he is. Tells him his name. He says, you're from an asylum, right? In other words, they think I'm crazy. That's where you're from, isn't it? Well, I'm not going, see? The old cat's the one who should be in the asylum. That was Mrs. Cole. I never did anything to little Amy Benson or Dennis Bishop. You can ask them. They'll tell you. Now, has Dumbledore said anything to him about Amy Benson or Dennis? No. So how does he know? Is this early legilimency? No. He's guilty. And he's thinking, and the implication, again, it's not in the text, but I think it's implied. Is Dumbledore the first person she's brought in to look at him? No. Right? Dumbledore says, no, I'm not. I'm from a school. But you don't have to come. Nobody will force you. Dumbledore says you're not mad. You can do magic. Magic? So he wants proof that Dumbledore can do magic. What does Dumbledore do? Sets his armoire on fire. And he's like, cool. Can I get one of them? Because he does it with a wand. Okay? This scene is going to come up later on in this book. Because Dumbledore is going to say to him, time's long gone. We're not going to what? Set a wardrobe on fire and make you do something, Tom. So, Dumbledore makes him take out his, what? His box of trophies. Why is it significant that he keeps trophies? That's what, say that again, Chad. That's what psychopaths do. That's what serial killers do. They keep trophies of their kills. You can read, get online if you want, corrupt your mind about what various serial killers have kept of their kills. Okay? This is telling us he's not only a psychopath, he's a sociopath. Okay? So, Dumbledore says, you can come, but you'll have to do what before you come? 2 things. Return what's been stolen and apologize. It's easy to return the stuff, right? I mean, little Amy Benson is somewhere. If he stole something from her, go put it on her bed. It's returned. The apologizing part, that's always the hard thing. Because what do you have to do when you apologize? Sincere remorse, you have to say, I am wrong, which means obviously you are right, which means I am lower, you are higher, I am nothing, you are something. It's self-abasement. It's humility. Humility and Voldemort mix like water and oil. They just don't go along together. Okay? And he says to Dumbledore, before then, my mother can't have been magic or she wouldn't have died. Dumbledore doesn't address that. Okay. So he talks about with Harry when they come back out. Dumbledore tells Harry to sit down. Harry, he believed it a lot quicker than I did. I mean, when you told me he was a wizard, I didn't believe Hagrid at first. Okay. But think of the difference of the two situations. On a rotted, eaten up old couch in the hut on the rock on the ocean with Hagrid versus a not so nice orphanage with Dumbledore, who has just proved to you that he was magical by turning the wardrobe into flame and then turning it back off. What did Hagrid do to prove what he was telling was true?
He had a note, didn't he?
Well, he had the letter from
Oh,
Hogwarts.
that he put a fire in the fireplace. Didn't even prove it. Didn't he do that when he walked in?
Yeah. I mean, he's got the coat with,
Yeah, with a bunch of different.
cake and all that kind of stuff.
I just trust him now.
But it's I mean,
It's nothing that's clear.
it's not, he doesn't have the panache that Dumbledore has. The style, okay?
Doesn't it also say a little later that he also believes it faster because he wanted to be
Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a second. Dumbledore says, yes, Riddle was perfectly ready to believe that he was, to use his word, special. Why? Because he thought he was special already. Did Harry ever, prior to Hagrid showing up, think he was special? Nope. He thought he was nothing. Why? Well, he's walking around with broken glasses,
Clothes that are 3 sizes.
clothes that are 3 sizes too tall, hair that can never be combed or brushed properly. Even when he gets it cut, it looks exactly the same after it's cut. Which should tell him what? Not normal hair. Because, I mean, think about just that for a moment. What could the Dursleys do? Shave it. Bald as a bowling ball. And what would his hair be like the next day?
Didn't they do that?
Yeah, they did that in the first one.
Yeah, I don't think it was bald. I think it was cut short.
They cut it
Yeah,
said
they cut it short, but they left the bang to cover the scar. And the next day it was,
back to normal.
should tell him, I'm not like everybody else. All right? Harry, did you know them? Know what? Did I know I had just met the most dangerous dark wizard of all time? No. Why? Why didn't he know? Possibly. Why else? Easier answer than that.
His mistake.
He's a kid. He wasn't at that point. What? The most dangerous dark wizard of all time. What would make him the most dangerous dark wizard of all time? The choices he would make every day from that point on. In other words, Voldemort did not have, Tom Riddle did not have to become, I am Lord Voldemort.
It goes back to it's not about the abilities, but it is
The choices. It is the choices, Harry, far more than our ability that show what we truly are. Notice, it's not the choices that make us what we are. The choices reveal what's already inside. Okay.
I thought something about it.
Dumbledore, nope, no idea. I was intrigued by him, though. In other words, I said, this is one to watch. So he came to school. Dumbledore kept an eye out for him. His powers were surprisingly well developed, he says. Harry, it's a Parselmouth? Yep. One supposedly connected with the dark arts. Though, as we know, there are Parselmouths among the great and the good, too. Really? Who are the Parselmouths, plural, among the great and the good, too? Plural he uses. He doesn't say, and we all know there is a Parselmouth among the great and the good. Harry. Okay. I've always found that interesting. Does Dumbledore know Parselmouth?
I've wondered that. Does it say he doesn't?
Wasn't outright
Yeah.
saying it,
It doesn't outright say either way.
He just
Dumbledore
said that.
asks him in the first memory, though, you understood him, right? Is that Dumbledore merely getting Harry to admit, yeah, and then to take the next couple steps logically and say, oh, he's speaking Parselmouth. That's why Bob Ogden doesn't understand it.
But see, if he didn't know, why wouldn't he ask Harry what he said?
I always thought he'd be like, I've always wondered what he said. Harry, can you tell me?
It could be that. I don't know that it is. I think Dumbledore might understand it, and he needs Harry to make the mental steps to figure out why Bob Ogden doesn't understand it. Okay? Because Harry doesn't see the speech come out in italics. He doesn't hear the speech come out with an accent. Because Harry understands Parseltongue as if it's his everyday, ordinary speech. Okay? So, Dumbledore says, okay, Harry, so a couple other things here. You saw his reaction when I mentioned another shared his first name, Tom. Uh-huh. He showed his contempt for anything that tied him to other people, anything that made him ordinary, even at 11 years old. Okay? He wanted to be different, separate, notorious. You also noticed he was highly self-sufficient, secretive, or secretive. Not that he secretes things. Apparently friendless. He did want companionship. He noticed he didn't want help getting to Diagon Alley. Give me directions. I'll find it on my own. As an 11-year-old in London. Okay, yeah. You'll hear many of his Death Eaters, last page, claiming they're in his confidence. That they alone are close to him, even understand. Where did we hear that? Bellatrix and Snape. Okay. They are deluded. Lord Voldemort has never had a friend, nor do I believe he has ever wanted one. And lastly, I hope you're not too sleepy to pay attention to this, Harry. Why? What has Harry just done when Dumbledore says that? Text doesn't tell us this. It's implied. He's yawned. It's getting late. He's tired. Dumbledore's like, wake up, Harry. The young Tom Riddle liked to collect trophies. You saw the box? Harry's like, yeah. And now it's time for bed. Harry, the ring's gone. In other words, you woke me up. Very astute, Harry. And Harry goes off.
The trophy, was that kind of connecting with his Slughorn? Kind of like foreshadowing? Or is it-
Not necessarily a foreshadowing, because it comes after the Slughorn stuff.
I was going to say, or is it more like the Horcruxes where he's collecting these objects from?
It's what the Horcruxes are based
He
on.
didn't know about it until he asked Slughorn about it.
Didn't know about what?
Right?
Well, he
When he
knew
read-
about the Horcruxes. He just didn't know, like, if you could only do it once or if it was a possibility that you could do it more.
Wait, who are we talking about?
We're talking about Voldemort.
Voldemort.
You're talking about Voldemort. Harry doesn't learn. Harry learns about the Horcruxes from Dumbledore.
Yeah.
He's got to find out the one memory from Slughorn. Yeah. Okay. So, Felix Felicis.
I think the fact of her including the trophy kind of idea with him was to a sense of foreshadowing. Even
Oh,
though it
yeah.
came after the Slughorn, it was kind of a link together.
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, what house is Slughorn in? Okay. I mean, there's definitely, what do I want to call this? Nefarious qualities to Slughorn. Where if Slughorn weren't kind of a likable old blowhard, he could really be dangerous. Okay? I'm going to skip that. Ron and Ginny have a big blowout. Harry defends Ginny. We hear Auntie Muriel be described. That's going to be important because we then get to meet her later on. Because Ginny says Aunt Muriel's the only one Ron's ever kissed. Just, ew. Go to chapter 15, The Unbreakable Vow. We've got 15 minutes. I'm going to get through faster. So, um, 318, Slughorn's Christmas party. And Trelawney, talks about her class being the best and Harry the chosen one and stuff. Slughorn makes a comment about Harry having instinctive ability like Lily. He says, this is 318, I've only ever taught a few with this kind of ability. I can tell you that, Sybil. Why, even Severus. Okay? So he mentions Lily and he says, even Severus. Same sentence. And Snape's like, what? Are we talking about the same student? Harry? In potions? Doing well? So, Harry goes off and follows Snape and Malfoy. He notices Malfoy's got a grayish tinge to his skin. Okay? And he eavesdrops. Again, what always happens when Harry or anybody else eavesdrops? Something bad. They never get the whole story, and he doesn't get the whole story. So we hear Snape, and how do we see Malfoy address Snape in this scene? Is it the same way Malfoy addresses Snape in books 1 through 4? He's rude. Not only to a teacher, to what teacher? His head of house. Okay? Snape says, listen to me. I'm trying to help you. I swore to your mother I would protect you. I made the unbreakable vow, Draco. Well, looks like you'll have to break it then. In other words, sucks to be you. You're going to die. Yeah. What is your plan? None of your business. If you tell me what you're trying to do. And before that, Malfoy says, don't look at me. I know what you're trying to do. What you talking about? Don't do the legilimency on me. He's what? He can now keep Snape out of his mind. It tells us Malfoy is a pretty good occlumency. Who taught him occlumency? Snape? Bellatrix? Yeah, Bellatrix. Okay? So they keep talking. Harry hears all. How does this fit? 16. A very frosty Christmas. Ron is talking with Harry and Fred and George about the unbreakable vow. Harry, Ron, no, I couldn't have. You sure? Yeah. What does it mean? Well, you can't. Yeah, I figured that one out for myself. Thanks. Ron, you die. Fred and George tried to get me to make one when I was about 5. Nearly did, too. I was holding hands with Fred, everything, when Dad found us. He went mental. Notice we're not told, the light strings, whatever, started to form. Okay? I've only ever seen Dad as... Only time I've ever seen Dad as angry as Mom. Fred reckons his left buttock has never been the same since. Okay? So... this is really important. Yeah, we've got time. So around 321 or so. It's Christmas time. They're at the Burrow. Lupin's there. Okay. Harry's talking about what he overheard between Snape and Malfoy. He told Mr. Weasley we're told everything. Everything he'd overheard. He saw Lupin's head turn a little. In other words, Lupin's paying attention. Mr. Weasley, has it ever occurred to you, Harry, that Snape was simply pretending? Pretending to offer help so that he could find out? Yeah. Thought that's what you'd say. But how do we know? Harry asks the question. How do we know? Do we know? This is a question in philosophy of what's called epistemology. Epistemology is how we know things. How do we know? Look at what Lupin says. It isn't our business to know. It isn't our business to know. It's Dumbledore's business. Dumbledore trusts Severus, and that ought to be good enough for all of us. What's he mean? Harry's asking, how do we know? Lupin says, Dumbledore trusts Snape. That should be good enough for us. Why? He's leaving a step out. That's good enough for us. That's good enough is the conclusion. What's missing here?
It's good enough for Dumbledore.
We trust Dumbledore. That's the import of that. We trust Dumbledore. Dumbledore's not been wrong, seemingly. Okay? Harry, but say Dumbledore's wrong about Snape. What if? Just work with me here, he says. People have said it many times. It comes down to whether or not you trust Dumbledore's judgment. I do. Therefore, I trust Severus. That's it. I trust Dumbledore's judgment. Dumbledore trusts Snape. Therefore, I trust Snape. Harry, but Dumbledore can make mistakes. He says it himself. Okay? What's Harry doing here? He's setting up Book 7. He's setting up almost all of Book 7. Because Book 7 is ultimately, first 3/4, about Harry's lack of faith in Dumbledore. He's going to say several times, or the narrator will say this, there it is again, choose what to believe. And Harry will say, don't they know? I have to know. Okay? So Rowling sets up the opposition of knowledge in belief. Knowing in believing. Her language. That's not my quote-unquote reading Christianity stuff into it. It's her language. Okay? So Harry then turns to Lupin. Do you honestly like Snape? I neither like nor dislike Severus. Snape says coldly, calculatedly. No, we'll never be bosom friends. All that happened between James and Sirius and Severus, too much bitterness there. But I don't forget the year I taught at Hogwarts, and he did what? Every month. Made the Wolfsbane potion. Okay? This starts here. Harry doesn't fully trust Dumbledore. Why? He wants to know why Dumbledore trusts Snape. Well, what's going to happen? Not very long. Before then. It's even before Dumbledore gets killed by Snape. He finds out what? Who told Lord Voldemort about the prophecy? Snape. And Dumbledore says, damn, wish you didn't know that, son. Didn't mean for you to learn that yet. You needed to learn that, but it needed to come later. Okay? So, skipping a bit, Scrimgeour shows up. What does he want Harry to do?
Tell everybody that he's on the ministry side.
Tell everybody he's on the ministry side. Be a mascot. Put on the Captain America little dancing girl outfit and go off and sell war bonds. Pretty much that's it. Harry says no. Why? 2 reasons, really.
Because he doesn't like the ministry.
Doesn't like the ministry. Okay, 3 reasons.
They put Stan Shanplay.
He does this. What does he mean? I must not tell lies. He says, this was the ministry. Okay? They put Stan Shunpike in prison. He's obviously under an Imperious curse. 4 or 5 reasons. Why else? They didn't believe me. They didn't believe Dumbledore. Why else? Well, 6, 7 reasons. Umbridge! I mean, he's saying the ministry is what? Corrupt. Corrupt. And what's his final one? Oh, Dumbledore's man through and through, are you? Yeah, me and Dumbledore, we're like this until he's dead. In which case, this becomes this.
The knowledge versus believing, actually, I kind of think it's touched in the last book. Because
It is
now,
touched.
now that you were talking about it.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
And
Big time. Or as Trump would say, bigly. Okay? Harry, I don't want to be used, he says on about the second to the last page. Jump to the very end of the 7th book. He's been used. But it becomes a little bit different by that point. Okay? So we get a sluggish memory.
Whoa.
Harry, that's a bad one. Harry goes off to Dumbledore,
He just hit somebody.
and we go into the memory, we see Tom Riddle Jr. go and speak to Morphin and Marvolo. Okay? And what happens? Dumbledore comes out, pulls Harry out of the memory, and Harry says, so Voldemort stole Morphin's wand and used it? Uh-huh. Yep. And Morphin never realized he hadn't done it? Hadn't done what?
killed the Riddle family.
Killed the Riddle family. How old was Tom Riddle when he did this? Just before that, actually. Or, yeah, 15, 16. About the time that he creates the diary. You have to kill somebody in order to make a Horcrux. The Horcrux is the diary. Okay? She died in his 3rd year. I don't think she was the one.
She died.
Hagrid's 3rd year, sorry.
She died when he opened the Chamber of Secrets.
Yes, so,
He might have used that, and then the
but she doesn't die by Tom Riddle doesn't kill her, it's the basilisk.
Would a ghost come
Yeah,
out
but
of the...
he's commanding. I don't know. Anyway, keep going.
It's possible.
I'm listening.
But
No, that's possible.
Because he uses the riddles death to like do the ring because he steals that from Morphin.
Well, but he's got. Remember, there's 3 people there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
He can
It's possible.
kill more than. I mean, he could do more than one Horcrux there. So Dumbledore says, I extracted this memory with difficulty. When I saw what it contained, he did what? He tried to get a Morphin out of Azkaban. Why?
Well,
Well, he's
didn't do the
he's
death.
innocent. He's innocent of that. Does he deserve to be in Azkaban? Yeah, probably. But not for those crimes. Whatever Morphin was, he did not deserve to die as he did, blamed for murders he had not committed. That tells us an awful lot about Dumbledore's sense of justice compared with the Ministry's. The Ministry doesn't matter who gets committed, as long as somebody does. As long as somebody is seen paying the price. Just like it doesn't matter, according to Scrimgeour, whether or not Harry really is supporting the Ministry. It's what as Scrimger says, people believe. It's not what's true. It's perception. Okay? So, he shows Harry the memory with Slughorn. It says, Harry, I need that memory. I need the real one. This one's been modified. Go get it for me. So how did Harry try? He does exactly what Tom Riddle does. Well, can you tell me about Horcruxes?
Could he not recall something so significant enough to be like?
No, because he's stupid. I mean, I say it repeatedly. Harry's not the brightest bulb. I don't know that Ron would do any better. Hermione definitely would.
But why did Hermione Vance or whatever,
Well,
in the Order of Phoenix, she said, and they said you were a bright one.
Yeah,
He's quick on his feet. That doesn't
He's
make him like
quick on his feet, but he's not book smart. He's not logic smart. Would he have ever gotten past Snape's potions? No.
With the word.
No, he'd have been dead. Okay.
I don't think that Hermione would have been any better because when she goes into the shop to question her board and whatever about what Malfoy, she was trying to get out of what Malfoy was talking
Well, that
about.
didn't require book smarts. That required like stuff on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.